So as I've said in the title here about, is this the end of miniature wargaming as we know it? And as I mentioned, this is not clickbait. This is not me trying to hype things up. I genuinely think that we are kind of in a bit of an uncharted territory when it comes to this. And you might be thinking, well, what the hell's he talking about? What's Games Workshop done now? Or kind of like, is it all to do with kind of things are just getting expensive? I think that, like I say, there's a deeper rooted problem here, and it is all based down to basically energy prices in the UK and the cost of living. Now, this affects everybody. This is not just to do with toy soldiers. It's not just to do with miniature wargaming. It's affecting everybody. It's affecting me with my energy bills at home. It affects me on kind of how much food costs. It affects me on kind of how much it costs to fill the car. All those kind of things, and it's affecting you at home as well, I'm sure. Now, for some folks who are overseas, they're not based in the UK, you might not realise that we are experiencing kind of increases in energy costs way, way, way above kind of what the rest of the world are generally at the minute. I'm sure there might be other countries as worse off than we are, but generally we are way out of kilter with everybody else. The government itself hasn't really done anything to kind of bring those costs under control like some other European countries have, and we're starting to kind of feel the pain for it. And one thing that's happening now is there's a thing called an energy price cap, and that basically what used to happen was every 6 months that energy cap was kind of renegotiated. And what's happened now is the government have agreed they can renegotiate that every 3 months. And what is essentially happening is the cost of energy is just getting completely out of hand. And it has gone up as much as kind of like sort of 200% to most people's homes. So instead of paying maybe £50-60 a month for your energy bills, people are having to pay in the region of £300 and £400 a month for energy bills. And that means that, people like me and you then basically have less money in their pocket. And we talked about this last week when somebody said, do you think it's going to have a big effect? And my answer was, I think what will happen is people will start to cut back on things like going to the cinema, going to the pub, going to restaurants, eating takeaways, that kind of thing. And then because they're staying at home more often, they'll probably continue to buy some hobby stuff, and they'll kind of cut back in other areas. But the more I thought about it and a few things I've seen over the last week, the more I think there's a bigger problem here at risk. And this is why I think it's going to change the miniature wargaming hobby as we know it. And the problem isn't with us as the consumers. The problem is with the industry itself. So let's forget Games Workshop, let's forget Mantic, let's forget all the overseas companies, let's forget Warlord and everybody else, and let's drill right down to the kind of the heart of the community, the thing that engages all of us. And that is your local friendly gaming stores and your kind of, your clubs, your gaming clubs that you go to. And one interesting point that people might not know is the energy cap that I was talking about, where basically the government have agreed with kind of with the energy companies, if you like, or Ofgem, who's like the ombudsman, have agreed this energy cap and it can't go above that. That isn't in place for businesses in the UK. So if you have a business, this energy cap does not exist. So if they say the energy cap is £2,000, for example, it can be £6,000 for a business. It doesn't matter. There is no energy cap for businesses. So these smaller kind of friendly local gaming stores, I mean, yourself, friendly local gaming stores are not rolling in money. They're not kind of like a Louis Vuitton shop here. They're not a Gucci shop. They're not making money hand over fist. They are generally family-run businesses, maybe have 1 or 2 employees at best. They're kind of, you see the same owner working there 6 days a week, trying their best, working all hours of the day and night. The tills are not like ringing constantly. It's not like there's always somebody in there buying some stuff. It's not like the kind of every table's full. It's not like the shelves are empty and they're having to restock on a regular basis. Generally, gaming stores are working on very, very low margins to keep themselves open. And what is happening is the cost of running this business has just gone absolutely through the roof in such a short space of time, to the point where there are a lot of companies and lots of businesses are basically saying, I physically don't take enough money in to cover the cost of running a shop anymore. And that's not because it's not because they're bad business owners. It's just physically the structure that their business has been built upon has been completely just turned over overnight. So if these friendly local gaming stores go to the wall, you might be thinking, oh, well, it's fine, I'll buy my stuff online. That's not really a problem if all these little game stores who should have better business models, if they go to the wall, so what kind of thing. The problem that will happen is all of these game stores that you buy your stuff with online all have sort of bricks and mortar shops. They all have overheads. They all have business rates. They all have energy costs. The cost of the product that they actually sell is starting to go up in price as well, because the energy costs of the people that are making this stuff is going through the roof. These shops will close. I will guarantee it. There's been stuff on the news recently about restaurants are saying that they're going to close. There's been stuff on the news about it's going to be £20 a pint for a pub to be able to break even with the cost. If you think that pubs and restaurants are going to the wall, gaming shops are going to go to the wall before they ever get there. So if we lose these gaming shops, our variety of games that we actually get access to buy will go. It's all right. There's a GW on the high street. We will still be able to buy our GW stuff, but that little quirky shop that sells all those kind of the quirky sort of miniatures that you can't get anywhere else, these are the shops that are just going to disappear overnight. These are the ones that are going to go to the wall. Like, there's a shop local to me where the guy posted on Facebook yesterday that he's closing his shop now. He's taken on a full-time job. He's going back to working full-time in education. And a lot of that is down to the fact that he's just preempting what's going to happen. He knows that he is being priced out of running that business. So that's the first stage of it. These gaming shops are going to go. If the gaming shops go, where you're going to play your games. If you think you're just going to keep going to the local church hall and all that kind of stuff, church halls' energy costs are going to be going up through the roof unless they start charging more for people to come in and rent the hall. You might be paying £4 for your kind of subs to come and play at a church hall or something like that. Would you pay £15? Because that's the kind of level of difference that energy costs are going to. If they need to cover the kind of cost of opening the place and keeping the lights on and keeping the place warm, like, subscription costs are going to go up to like £10-15 a game. Like, who's going to be paying that kind of money? So all of this is like the hobby at that level as we know it will change dramatically. Let's take it up a step from that. You've got some smaller industries within our kind of hobby sort of sphere. People who make MDF kind of like laser cut terrain. People who are making like resin bases and stuff like that. Those businesses that are just that little bit too big to be home based, like in a garage or something like that at home. Or out of a spare room in a bedroom somewhere. They're just that little bit too big for that, so they've had to rent office space, or they've had to rent like a little factory unit somewhere, or something like that. These places are going to be among the first to absolutely go to the wall. Again, they're generally the kind of place where it's one person, kind of working 6 days a week on their own, just churning out orders, keeping on top of things, trying their best to try and generate sales. And basically what's going to happen is the cost of rent's gone up for renting their factory units. Their cost of energy's gone through the roof. The cost of the raw materials that they're buying to make the stuff. Everything has just gone absolutely nuts. And these businesses will be all the ones that go. So all of a sudden we've got no hobby stores. We've got no gaming clubs. We've got none of these kind of cottage industry, smaller kind of boutique type sort of manufacturers. All of a sudden, they're all gone as well. And this is what I mean about the wargaming kind of hobby as we know it, like, will never be the same again. We're going to get to a point where, like, essentially what's going to happen is we're going to end up with kind of Games Workshop and a few other maybe bigger companies who are really just trying to ride it out. One, they're probably making a bit more money than your average business within the hobby sphere, and they can maybe kind of try and tighten their belts and ride through it. They might lay some staff off. They might try and kind of reduce their kind of working hours or something like that. They might drop out a few of the kind of releases that they were looking at. They might maybe look to try and do things a little bit more energy efficient. But essentially, like, even the bigger companies, even the Games Workshops, are going to have to cut their cloth accordingly. Like, the levels of difference in the caustic in the costs to run a business right now are just out of control. And the worst part is there is no signs of this getting better. They've gone up like astronomically. They're going up again in October. They're already planned in to go up again in January, right at a time of year when it's really cold and everybody's got the heating on and kind of, like things just generally cost more to run anyway. The whole thing is out of control, and it's nobody's fault. It's not Games Workshop's fault. It's not these smaller hobby companies' fault. It's not these these game stores. It's nobody's fault. It's completely outside of their control, and it is just going to absolutely ruin these businesses. Now, some of these businesses have had to take out things like COVID loans to kind of cope with the fact that they've been shut for 2 years and their businesses were basically going down the pan, especially kind of hobby shops and things like that. And they're having to pay back those COVID loans, except the fact that interest rates are now going through the roof. So they're paying more money for the loans that they had to borrow to try and kind of keep the doors open from when they were shut for a while. That's just getting out of hand. We've then got inflation going through the roof, so the cost of the actual raw materials, the things that they're selling to me and you, that's going through the roof. It'll be very soon we start to see the end of like 20% discounts on like Games Workshop products and other hobby companies' products, because that 20% is going to be like, if they can't afford to keep the lights on and keep the doors open, they're not going to be giving me and you 20%. So the first thing we'll start to see is those discount rates starting to go up, and it'll take a little while before that happens, because everybody will be looking at each other, waiting to see who jumps first and who starts to put their price up first. And as soon as one does it, everybody else will start to follow. Everybody will start to try and kind of do it. It's an absolute car crash. And I'll be honest, I feel like the bringer of doom and gloom. And you'd be saying, oh, I want to keep this out. I thought this was all about miniatures and stuff like that. I wanted to try and distract myself from the world away and thing as it is. The problem we've got is, and I'll be honest, I was talking to Annie from Bad Squiddo tonight, and I said, I'm not really a political person. I generally kind of, I'll be honest, most of the time, if it's not something I can control, I kind of bury my head in the sand a little bit and worry about the things that I can control and the things that I can do something about. But the problem with this is, it is absolutely outside of our control, and it's getting worse, and there's no plan. This is the problem. Like, I'm quite fortunate that me and my wife, we've got a little bit of savings kind of thing to fall back on if things go bad. My wife's got a decent job. We don't have sort of debt outside of our mortgage. Like, we're probably some of the fortunate people, and we're feeling it. Like, I hate to think what it's like for people who were already kind of feeling the pinch after COVID. Maybe they've lost their job. Maybe like, like times are tough. They've got a few kids, and like, honestly, I want to be able to do something about it, but it's completely outside of anyone's control. And as soon as we start to lose some of these stores, as soon as we start to lose some of these hobby companies, people making materials, people making, bits of terrain and nice bases and all that kind of stuff, there'll be some that make miniatures. There's so much of the market, especially at the kind of like the lower to middle end, that is basically, it is run by people who are freelance. It's run by people who basically kind of freelance for lots of different companies. And the first thing that will start to happen is some of these companies start to go out of business. These freelance people basically don't have enough work to keep going, and then they'll be the next ones to go. And it sounds like the kind of the bringer of doom, and it's all doom and gloom. But you know what? It really is. And this is what I mean about this video is not clickbait. I'm not saying like, oh, this is the end of Games Workshops put their prices up and people can't afford it anymore. It's not about that. This is a very, very serious problem. The UK is out of control when it comes to energy prices, and there is so much of the wargaming hobby, the wargaming industry that is based in the UK. It's just like, I can only see dark clouds above for it. Now, of course, can I be optimistic and go, oh, it might all sort itself out? We can all say that. We can all cross our fingers, but we know it's only going to get worse in the short term. And the problem is, the short term is when we're going to start to see these businesses close. If they can get to Christmas, they're going to be doing all right, but then they're going to fall off a cliff come January. And this is a real worry for me. If we start to lose hobby stores, we start to lose manufacturers, we start to lose games, we start to lose places to play,
the hobby industry will never be the same again. And you might say, oh, well, people will just go and buy Games Workshop stuff. Fine, go and buy Games Workshop stuff. Well done to Games Workshop for having an infrastructure big enough to be able to kind of ride this out for a little bit and pick up all of those people that basically go on and have money to spend on Games Workshop products when the price goes up. But that's not good for the hobby. That's not good for the wider hobby. I'd love to know what you think. I think we can pretend to be optimistic. We can pretend that everything's going to be fine in the future, but there's no plan. There's no plan to make it better. And I'm sorry this is a bit of a downer, but I think sometimes we have to be realistic about this kind of stuff. So tell me what you think.